Hey guys, what's up? I just wanted to do just a real quick video, something that Brendan Schaub said. By the way, uh, I love Brendan Schaub, super successful. I love everything he's doing. I love his comedy. I love his insight. Um, you know, I was a huge follower of him when he was in the UFC. So, this doesn't come from like a personal place. It's just, and he's the expert, right? He's a bigger expert than I'll ever be, right? I'm just, I'm just an outsider. I'm just a fan, right? So, I don't want to try to come at this, like I know more than he does or anything like that. So this isn't where this is from. It's just a sheer, you know, fan-sided opinion. Okay. Just want to talk about how he recently was talking about the UFC 227 card this weekend and just trashing and talking about how bad it was and talking about, you know, just how crap the card was and everything else. I tell you what, I'm just gonna play a little bit of a clip. This is a clip that someone else clipped out, so this isn't direct. The audio is directly from the show. Anyway, let me just play that real quick. That way you guys can kind of just kind of hear it.
Pay-per-view card this Saturday, besides the top two, is the worst pay-per-view they've put on in a long, long time.
Yeah.
And that's no shade towards TJ Dillashaw, Cody Garbrandt. That's a phenomenal fight. I can't wait for that fight. Demetrius Johnson, Henry Cejudo, good fight. We've seen him fight before. Henry got destroyed, but that was 2 years ago. Henry's getting a lot better. Olympic medalist, gold medalist, one of the greatest wrestlers to ever enter the goddamn octagon. So you know he's gonna get him be a better fighter. We're gonna get a better fight. He's just gonna get knocked out with a body shot.
Okay, so I just want to pause that right there. So, okay, so he's talking about the main event. Obviously, TJ and Cody, and then Henry Cejudo and DJ. All right, obviously those are going to be two awesome fights. Um, no telling what's going to happen. Obviously, we're probably going to see Demetrius Johnson retain, and I'm kind of rooting for TJ. But that's beyond the point. Point is that they're going to be two awesome fights, and obviously, I don't think anybody else can dispute that. He says the rest of the card is trash. Here's the thing. Here's the thing, and him and Chael had kind of gotten into some back and forth about some of the stuff that Schaub said about revealing too much about the business, and I've even heard Brendan talk about how UFC has trashed other fighters, and it's not good for business because those fighters make your money. Those fighters are your product, right? I know Brendan's not associated with the UFC, so he really doesn't have a stake, right, in what he's talking about. Like, obviously, he can say whatever he wants to, and Uncle Dana can't do anything to him. And hey, more power to him. I get it, but here's the thing, though. And I hate the word, and I'm not calling you this, Brendan. I'm not calling you this, okay? But a lot of people use the word casual, right, and they talk about how casuals are people who only like, main events of cards and not the rest of the card and blah, 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 blah. I'm not calling you that, but, you are crapping on the rest of the card, right? You have a lot of fighters who are going to get exposure from this card, going to get exposure from the Cody and TJ fight, from the Demetrius Johnson and Henry Cejudo fight. They're getting that exposure. Obviously, you're not calling them out, and you're not saying they suck, and you're not saying this, you're not saying that. You're not saying anything directly. But here's the thing. Indirectly, you are kind of crapping on the fighters of that undercard. Okay? I don't think it's cool, and I think somebody in your position shouldn't do that, right? And I understand that you have a beef with Dana and the UFC, and you even go on to say in a little bit, and we'll hear it, that this isn't what this is, but I mean, it kind of sounds like sour grapes, man. Like I said, I've got no personal problem with you, man. Like I love the stuff you do. I'm just kind of expressing my opinion on this particular matter, right? I love what you're doing, but enough out of me. Let's just go back. I just want to touch up a little more on this video.
Other than that, this is it's a sad card, man. It's a sad, sad card. It's a very, very sad card. I can't believe that's where we're at right now with the UFC. And LA we used to have some killer fights there, man. If you remember the last one at Staples, usually when they come to California, they'd always release the hounds, but we get this, and I don't. Did they do they not just they don't care? I don't know.
So with that part, right, about how the card isn't stacked enough and how they when they usually come to LA, it's a killer card. Um, Again, here's the thing, right? Here's the trap that, and granted, UFC has kind of done this to themselves, right? They were trying to set up super cards multiple times a year. We just had one. Well, it was supposed to be a super card. 223 was supposed to be really good, and then it kind of got ruined, right? Um, 225 was a huge card. Obviously, 226 was a huge card. 227 coming up is going to be a huge card, right? And then potentially with um, the Khabib Connor fight coming up in October, supposedly as of this video, but that's going to be a huge card, right? The November Madison Square Garden card, it's always a huge card. Typically, the end of the year card is pretty good too. The very last pay per view of the year, that's usually pretty good too. But um, I, we can't really complain when there aren't top five guys in every single fight, right? That you can't really complain about that. And I think that's what, as fans, and even some of the analysts, um, that's kind of what we're looking towards now. Is like if every fight on the card isn't a top five guy, it's like it's a trash card. Well, like, how do these guys get better? How do these guys get more notoriety? How do these guys get more, um, more exposure? There's the fight nights, yeah, right. There's Ultimate Fighter finales. There's Contender Series. There's all these things and all these other mediums. But you know, we can't just keep throwing guys on fight night. They need the exposure of the pay per views, right? They need the exposure of those huge cards because here's the thing, and I know Chael always goes back to pro wrestling when he kind of makes analogies, right? You kind of it's called I'll make another one, right? Um, Say for instance, you have tag matches, right? And say you have a guy who is kind of few people know who he is. A lot of insiders know who he is. A lot of fans don't. So you know what you do? You take the smaller guy, stick him in a tag match with one of the bigger guys, Rock, Stone Cold, whoever. I'm just kind of going back in time, and they kind of get a rub, right? It's called they get a rub off of the bigger star. People will associate them like, hey, that's a guy I tagged with so and so. They still might not know his name necessarily, but they'll start to get more familiar with him. Like, yeah, that's that guy that tagged with old Stone Cold last week, right? Um, maybe there's somebody we should look out for. It's kind of the same, kind of a similar idea. Stick them on the pay per view, even if it's on the undercard, even if it's on the Fight Pass or the prelims. They're still associated with that pay per view, right? I was so and so was on the undercard of UFC 226. They could still say, hey, I was on UFC 226. From a marketing standpoint, from a resume standpoint, right? It looks huge. It looks great when you can say that, put that on your resume. I don't want to play the whole thing, but there's some things that I do agree with Brendan on. This just happens to be one of the bigger ones. I don't know, guys. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. Leave a comment. Leave me a reply. I don't know. Am I way off base here? Am I crazy? I'm curious to hear what other fighters think who are on the undercard. Maybe anybody that's on the undercard for that fight. I'm just curious what you think when you hear stuff like this. That's all I got.